You're listening to the GreenTech Podcast. In this podcast, we dive deep in the trends of horticulture with renowned experts. For more information, go to greentech.nl. GreenTech brings you to the heart of the horticulture industry.
Welcome at this very first GreenTech podcast. My name is Jeannette Boer, and I will be the host this episode. Well, we record this podcast during the 4th edition of the GreenTech show in Amsterdam. And we're going to kick off with a very cool topic. It's all about the cannabis industry, but the medicinal cannabis industry. We've got 3 guests here on our table to talk about this topic with us. It's Mariska Dreschler. Hello.
Hello.
Laura Rastovac.
Hello.
Hi,
Jeannette.
Welcome. And Juriën Koster.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, I would like to ask you all first to introduce yourself briefly, please.
Okay, well, I'm Mariska Dreschler and I'm Director Horticulture of the GreenTech show and organizing it since the 2014 first edition. So, and very happy to talk about this medicinal cannabis topic today.
Yeah, welcome.
Thanks.
I'm Juriën Koster and I work for Phytonext and I help Mariska with the Medicinal Cannabis Knowledge Program on the GreenTech.
Okay, cool. Welcome. Laura.
My name is Laura and I work for Meteor Systems. And Meteor Systems produce horticultural systems for vegetables, fruits and flowers. And since 2013 also for the medicinal cannabis.
The GreenTech, it's all about technology here at the exhibition. But I also saw a huge cannabis pavilion at the show. Mariska, can you tell me, how are things going at the exhibition and particularly at the cannabis pavilion?
Well, actually, it's going quite well, to be honest. And well, we sensed already a few years ago with the legalization of cannabis, medicinal cannabis in Canada and in some states in the United States, that this specific crop is growing and growing. And we also see that a lot of Dutch technology suppliers are in that field. And therefore, since we have at GreenTech crop optimization for all kinds of vegetables, fruits, and crops in total, we think it's very important to have also medicinal cannabis as a topic here.
Yes.
So it's running quite well, as we see that there's a lot of interest also by other countries to have it legalized. And actually, looking at this point, also in the Netherlands, it is legalized, but it's just one company that is allowed to produce it.
Okay. So what kind of activities are there at the pavilion?
Well, there's a lot of suppliers. So from seeds to, the different systems that you need in a greenhouse to have the plant grow as best as possible with higher yields and very good outcome of the ingredients, of course, in the plant itself. We have an extensive knowledge program which Juriën is a part of, and uses. We use his brains to have a very good knowledge program on that. And Laura is involved in that as well as one of the top players, looking at equipment that you need for growing this specific crop.
So the interest is increasing and increasing, right? Last years.
Good thing.
So, yeah, because Juriën, you organize sessions or a knowledge program at the pavilion. I'm curious, what are the main interests of the visitors? What do you notice?
What I notice is that there's a lot of interest in cannabis, and I think it's an understatement. So it's becoming huge all over the world, and you see what we see is that a lot of people want information about every aspect of cannabis. Information is very scarce in this industry. There are different kinds of cannabis people don't know. There's all kind of legal issues with cannabis, of course.
Yeah.
So it's not just as simple as you just grow it in your greenhouse. There's all that kind of things you have to take into account. So people just want to know everything. How does distribution work? How does logistics work? How does the legal framework is put together in the Netherlands? How does it work for the rest of the EU? So people basically want to know everything. So, and that's why you see that almost every exhibitor on the Medicinal Cannabis Pavilion gets tons of visitors just asking questions about pretty much everything. Even though it's not their own expertise, you just see them coming up to you and say, oh, please just tell me what you can.
You notice that as well, Laura?
Yes, of course. It's a new crop. And there's still a lot to learn about, also in the cultivating side.
Yeah.
So that's where we come in. We want to share the knowledge. We want to learn about the techniques. So what is the best way to grow this crop to get a higher yield? And so therefore, the GreenTech offers the platform to exchange that kind of knowledge between big horticultural companies. So that's really fantastic. I like it.
Good, huh? Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, what I really like about it is that you see that there's, of course, a lot of knowledge as well with the cannabis growers, and that you now see that there's a merge going on between the horticulture regular growers, the suppliers, and the cannabis growers with their legacy, and that merge is going on. And that's really nice to
that's really what
to
you
see.
Want, I can imagine,
that's
an exhibition.
Exactly what we would like to do, to connect the people. Yeah, physically. Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, cannabis used to be a crop that was also always cultivated with the hand. I mean, it's a crop. It's 5,000 years BC. There were the first signs, but it was
5,000 years.
5,000 years. It's in China, and even I heard today in the news, 2,500 for BC. There were the first signs in bones that people were using THC. So it's
so actually, it's not really a new crop, right?
No, it's not a new crop, but it was always cultivated with the hand, and now it's getting regulated, it's getting legalized all over the world, and now we can as a company in the horticultural sector, we can innovate, we can put our knowledge on that new crop. So it's fantastic to be on the start, in the beginning of this new trend or new tendency.
Yeah, well, I feel the fresh energy here. That's fun. Juriën, you just said information is scarce in this sector. How come?
There's of course a lot have to do with the stigmas that are surrounding cannabis and still are. And
kind of taboos. Is it still a taboo?
Yeah, there's a lot of taboos. So events like this, like GreenTech, help breaking these taboos. But there's still. I can give an example. So we try to talk to the politicians a lot, but there's still a lot of political parties, and mostly the Christian parties, who do not want to have anything to do with cannabis, and they just see it as a drug, and drugs are bad. Just a very simple reasoning. And it's very hard to push through that kind of taboo, and you have the same thing in every country. So you have all the different states in the USA who are opening up to cannabis, but still on a federal level, it's still illegal. That's still because of the old taboos surrounding cannabis, which dates back to the 1930s, to what they call reefer madness, with all kind of propaganda from the government, where people using cannabis were jumping out of buildings and such, and it still counts today. So. And I think if you went on the street and you would ask someone, like our grandpas, for example, if you ask them about cannabis, they would see cannabis very differently than I do. 2 months ago, I gave a lecture on a high school here in the Netherlands, and I was talking about cannabis, and I got no laughs. People, they thought it was okay. You're in serious industry. When I go to a person my own age and I talk about cannabis, the first thing they do is they laugh. So that's the difference. So it's becoming more normal, but it's harder for the older generations to. They just cannot cope with it.
Yeah, there are still companies, horticultural companies, that are really big and are afraid to come out that they also supply for medicinal cannabis. So but they get more reformed, or how do you call it? So you see the tendency that people are they come to us and they say, well, how can we get in the scene of cannabis? It's just a normal crop. Just relax. It's nothing going on. The stigma has to go, but it's the transition.
For your company, there's no problem. You come out for it.
Yes, of course. We were one of the first companies, I would say, that came out. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's just a new crop that needs to have a good approach, a plant focus approach. So that's we are not scared to come out for that. No, we're proud.
And Mariska, for you as an exhibition director, how did you feel of adapting this crop to the exhibition? Was it a kind of scared decision? Were you scared? Or?
Well, of course, I had to explain and to convince quite a lot of people also around our organization. And but on the other hand, it is not illegal. So it is a crop that is legal in the Netherlands, for example, and we are in the Netherlands, of course, with GreenTech. So therefore, I'm explicitly taking that example, and it's by prescription of the doctor that you can get it. So there's a proof that it works. So and if you want to grow it in a good way and on large scale, then the Dutch technologies or the international technologies that are offered at GreenTech are the ones to take into account, because there's so much experience on growing crops. And let's put that together. And GreenTech is crop optimization. That's of the plant. The plant to get the highest yields, to get the best out of it. So medicinal cannabis is a logic crop to be part of the GreenTech. So therefore, I was very convinced about this, to embrace it. And I like the fact that there's still so much there's no much need to share knowledge, and I'm very happy to provide that platform with the GreenTech.
Yeah, and what's very nice is that there's increasing interest in cannabis, as we already mentioned, but you see a lot of cannabis conferences being held every month, almost every week now. They're all really focused on the investing part and the business part. So there was no real event focus on the cultivation and the supplier part of cannabis. There was
a need for it?
Yeah, there was absolutely. Oh, you can see it. If you go to the pavilion today, you will see there's a need for it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something that you can, of course, expect, that when a market opens, it's really like an industry that opens up, right? It's very disruptive, actually. So everybody is focusing on the money, but in that perspective, I'm really happy that we can put some. It's not peace, but some tranquility in it by securing the crop optimization, because the crop has to be the best ever, and the money is a follow up on that. But let's stick to first, what does it do? And people take it, they eat it, or they drink it.
Yes.
So let's make sure that product is cultivated in the best way possible. So.
Yeah, it's that's what I also talk about with other companies. That the GreenTech, you give the floor to talk about cultivating the cannabis plant, and everything is about partnership. It's about legislation. What you told about money and for branding, pioneering. But where is the focus on the plant? And it's so important to get the right yields, to get the right research, because it's all in the interest of patients. Don't forget the patients. We need to get that knowledge. We need to combine our powers to get the medicine accessible and also the knowledge accessible, all in the interest of patients.
So the information about the plant is very important to share it.
Yes.
But we also just talked about the scarcity of information in this industry. Is this information shared? Like, do the growers share these information? How to optimize the production, or what are the latest?
Not at all.
No,
not at all.
Oh, that's interesting, because
we should have been here yesterday. There was a whole session with Laura, which was Laura's session. She was moderating it with all the CEOs of all the top horticultural companies. And we all talked about how a lot of Dutch knowledge is bought, especially from Canadian producers. They just buy the knowledge, close the greenhouse, nothing comes out anymore. Everybody's under NDAs, so you cannot discuss anything you develop. So, and maybe Laura should talk with. It was a great session. It was a sort of call. Please let us share in the Netherlands. Let us demonstrate what we can do. And I think I personally really like the greenhouse example in the pavilion. I think that's a great example of what could be done here.
Work together, work together.
But there's basically none, because all these Canadians, they're not all from a horticultural background. They're all holding their cards to themselves. They're all stock listed companies, only thinking about their shareholders. So
And how?
Yeah, maybe in that perspective, it's good to explain. Well, we have this experience center, right? It's a greenhouse with the lights in it, the equipment that you have as Meteor systems with the gutter systems, etc. So it shows what is possible in a greenhouse. And next to that, if you look at the Canadians or the people that are now really in this market and putting a lot of investment in it, one of the reasons why the Dutch horticulture sector is so big is because they share. So, and without sharing
information, share knowledge.
Without sharing, you cannot innovate. So this is really also, I'm also in advocacy for the Canadian companies, for the Canadian growers, the investors. Please open up with your problems, because have a look at, for example, if a disease is coming up in your crop.
Yeah.
And you are not going to share that. Well, we need to share it, because in that way you can find good biological protection systems, and you can share so much knowledge, and you don't have to say everything, but you have to share the things that will help other growers to really have a healthy crop, so that people can take it with all the safety feelings that they are allowed to have, and to make sure that you approach it in the best way possible, and to keep on this innovative approach.
Yeah.
That's also, I think, why the Dutch are so big in the world, right? In horticulture, because of the sharing
It's
the knowledge.
family. They are all family companies that go way generations back. So the knowledge that's being bought by the Canadian is knowledge that goes centuries back.
Yeah.
And then we come there with our knowledge, and we produce. And that's what Juriën say. They close the door, we go back, and they don't share anything anymore. So it's only for a handful of people that signed the NDAs and exclusivity rights, and they will go further on our knowledge and innovating, and there's nothing coming back. So in 3 years, are we sold out?
I don't think so. I think that I'm sure that also Canadian growers are listening to this podcast, and it's a way to really encourage them to open up and to really learn from each other. And on one hand, or on the other hand, what I really like about the fact that there are now investors involved in this is that the green thumb, of course, is something that we are always talking about. It's the experience is important. Also, looking at the cannabis growers, they have a green thumb, and we should take that into account. But looking at the investors, they disrupt actually our sector by wanting AI and all kinds of measuring systems to know how the crop is growing. So they will really disrupt our sector. But so that's a good thing, I think, because that's innovative. But let's open up on the facts in which we can really add value towards each other, and look at the green, look at the blue ocean instead of the red ocean. Don't be afraid.
Green here.
Yeah,
green ocean.
Look at the green ocean. Yeah, look at the green fields. And of course, I know all the investors. They put a lot of money in it, and open up. Okay. You can easily say that. I truly believe that we have to do that. Without sharing, there is no real innovation, and you will keep your own eyes shut, actually. And
what's the role of the Dutch government or the Dutch developments? Because I just understood that there's only one company who can produce. So then it's also really difficult to develop here in the country itself. So
politically, we are holding back.
What's the role of the
problem?
Dutch?
Really, there's only one grower. He has won the tender about 16 years back. Now there's going to be a second medicinal grower. It's going to be new tender. It's all tenderized. It's all monopolized. And even if there's two, I mean, it's still only two. I mean, what are we talking about? It's still not a lot. And this whole the whole way the Dutch government is looking at it is that it's all looking at monopolies, which are illegal, by the way. And
that's quite crazy, right?
Yeah.
And what we should do is, I'm not saying you should open it up to everybody. I think almost nobody is saying that. You should have strictly enforced companies producing a narcotic. I mean, there's also companies on the world producing a poppy, to produce morphine. That's also a regulated crop. It's not like I can grow it in my backyard, but there's still companies able to do it. If you are compliant with all the rules they set out, you should be able to produce it. And there is a role for the Dutch government. They could open up the industry more. They could give out more licenses. And what you see now is that all those innovative companies, so part of our own company is moved to Germany now. So we hired people in Germany. The innovation takes place in Germany. We pay our taxes in Germany. All because we had to move the regulations. So we're now producing CPD oil in Germany. And we are selling it back to the Dutch, the Dutch patients. Yeah, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to develop when you can't develop in your own country as well, right? So that might also be part of the challenge.
Yes, of course it is. I think there will be 10 regulated, licensed growers, but then for the recreational market. And yesterday I heard that it would be definitely 10 because they want to lose the monopoly position. But still, there's still boundaries and there's still restrictions. And like the Ministry of Health in Denmark, they said, well, we open up the system. We have no restriction on license, importing, exporting. You can do everything with the crop, like flowers, powders, pills, all in the interest of patients, because we need to get that knowledge in our country because we don't know a lot about this crop and we need to learn more. So that's the good political position to take in the interest of your people. Of the country. So
actually, the developments in other countries go quite fast.
Yeah, Denmark is sort of similar to the Canadian model. So they also have no limit on the number of licenses. They do have a sort of state by state, but mostly there's I think there's already about 140 licensed producers over there.
Wow,
maybe even more. So they're really opening up, and there's this discussion about the UN law from 1963. That's why they say, okay, we cannot just open up. But you see Denmark, Canada, they're also in Luxembourg, they're now talking about opening up recreational medicine. So there are possibilities. And I think we should explore them, the industry with the government together should explore these possibilities. What can we do? Because now it's just a mess. There's no quality control on any of the crops. I work a lot with different kind of patients, and they go for the medicines, they go to the coffee shop, and the coffee shop buy an unregulated product, which is no control on quality whatsoever. So we're now in a situation nobody really wants.
I just left the studio and I'm going to visit the Medicinal Cannabis Pavilion to see what people think of the developments in this industry and how they see the future. I'm talking with Jaap, but can you please introduce yourself completely?
Of course. Jaap Erkelens. I'm Chief Production Officer for Meteor International. We are a contract manufacturer for the Office of Medicinal Cannabis, which is part of the Netherlands Ministry of Health. And we have cultivated cannabis as a raw material and as an API for the Office of Medicinal Cannabis since 2003.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining this conversation. But you're the only grower in the Netherlands, is that right? Grower of medicinal cannabis.
Well, define grower. There's, I think, only one production license. So there's only one company that supplies to the OMC for, let's say, medicinal purposes.
Yeah.
That's us. There's a couple of license holders as well for scientific purposes. So we're not the only supplier. There are other license holders in the Netherlands that grow cannabis as well.
Okay. So what do you think of the kind of monopoly situation in the Netherlands? How do you look at it?
Well, it's a government monopoly first and foremost. Like I said, we are a contract manufacturer. We are not the producer of cannabis in the Netherlands. Producer of cannabis is the Office of Medicinal Cannabis. The monopoly situation is basically is there by law. It is part of het enkelvoudig verdrag, the single convention in English. I had to search for the word. So the Dutch interpretation of the single convention is that the government itself is the producer, and every batch of cannabis grown has to be bought, taken in, and then distributed by the Ministry of Health. So you're asking the wrong person for an opinion.
Well, you can have an opinion about it as well, right?
It's to be honest, it's the only way. It's a controlled substance, so you're kind of stuck. The only real comment I have on it is that the more room, the more scientific evidence there is for the efficacy of cannabis as a drug, or let's say a derivative of cannabis as a drug for which you can use cannabis, the plant, as a raw material, the better. Because the current situation, the monopoly simply exists because cannabis is not a... there is scientific evidence that cannabis is effective, but there's only one registered drug at the moment, or two I should say, Sativex and Epidiolex, and there's dronabinol obviously, which is synthesized THC, or you can also get it from a natural source, but it's single molecule compound. Yeah. The more drugs there are, then it will just become part of the pharmaceutical industry, and then, like I said, you can get some sort of regulated industry going. Currently, the situation as it is an exemption. The industry in the Netherlands exists as an exemption. Cannabis is treated as if it were a drug. The government cannot magically wave its wand and make something a drug. You need to go through the normal regulatory process for that. Nobody has. And it's also very difficult to do with a herbal drug that has 140 different compounds.
But how do you see the developments towards the future? Do you think it will change?
If you get successful registered cannabis products, so that is at the moment kind of the problem with dronabinol, the Sativex with Epidiolex. Well, Epidiolex might take off, but none of these drugs are exactly blockbusters. The amount of demand there is for these products, the niche in which they belong, is relatively small. So unless you have, let's say, a blockbuster drug or a sudden demand for one of the compounds that is in cannabis as, let's say, a food supplement. So let's say beside the CBD hype, you would get a THCV hype or something else that you find in cannabis that somebody can put into superfood. That would be a market for, let's say, large-scale cultivation of cannabis. And the other market would be a blockbuster drug. But then somebody has to make that blockbuster drug and market it successfully and get it through the registration process. Until then, it's a relatively small affair. A couple of people in, like I said, you have a small patient base, mostly neuropathic pain, palliative care, people who are let's say, treated with other drugs that weren't successful, and then their symptoms are alleviated by cannabis. But all in all, this is a relatively small group of people, a small group of patients that we're serving.
Do you notice that everybody's interested in talking to you because they all want to grow cannabis but nobody knows really a lot about it?
Of course they do. I mean, I understand why.
Because of course, it's all about profit, right? Almost.
It pretty much is. I have no problem against people making money and there being an industry, obviously. But this is one of the reasons why our company is currently no longer active in Canada. What we were vehemently against was that the same companies that grow cannabis for medical purposes immediately switched their attention to growing for a recreational purpose, which, in our opinion, simply lowers the bar. And
so there was no moral anymore?
Well, there still is, but I would say that in general our fear is that it lowers the bar when it comes to quality standards, and that the patient needs are... people will profess very loudly that they put the patients first, but in reality they will lower the standards to find some sort of balance between serving both markets at the same time.
Yeah, and between optimized production and profit.
And that's what they'll do. And we don't think from a medical ethical point of view that's the way that you want to go. So we basically in our company we dedicated ourselves exclusively to growing for pharmaceutical purposes.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and hope you're enjoying the show, the rest of the show.
No, it was my pleasure. I hope you...
I want to end with just a small look ahead to the future, huh? How will it look like, you think? What kind of chances will there be? There are growers listening. What would your advice be for them?
I think there are chances in all different kind of segments of the cannabis industry. And I mean, you see consultants, you see lawyers, you see growers, you see distributors, you see technical suppliers, like myself, you see extraction companies, you see pharmaceutical companies. I really think, and I know there are possibilities everywhere in the market, and you just have to find and do what you're good at yourself. But if there are growers listening, there are definitely possibilities for you. I don't say it's easy, and you have to be good at it, but there are a lot of possibilities.
Yeah,
to be open for chances.
This big industry, it's really like a new industry opening up, and everybody can take his own specialism to contribute to the industry.
The government is maybe slow, but that doesn't mean that we don't get the opportunity. We have the knowledge, only we have to be patient. So I would say to the growers, keep on developing, keep on innovating, keep in mind the crop and have patience, and it will come, because there's no way back. Alexander, there's no way back. King Alexander, there's no way back.
Can I have one last note? Or?
One last note.
So yesterday on Laura's panel, I had this question for all the horticultural companies. I said, okay, what do you think about if we all together would say, okay, we want this industry in the Netherlands. If all of us combine our shared power to demonstrate how professional companies are these days, to show what we can do. And I want to ask everyone who's listening to the podcast, okay, let's combine powers, let's work together to make this happen in the Netherlands.
Amen to that.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. Well, it sounds super exciting, this industry. And I'm so curious what's going to happen next year. GreenTech will be from 8th till the 10th of June, Monday till Wednesday, 2020.
Yes.
So I hope to see you all there.
Definitely, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.